Welcome to the Agents of Innovation podcast, where we feature conversations with entrepreneurs, philanthropists, and artists. Okay, we are here at Caoba Farms in Antigua, Guatemala, and we're here with the owner and operator of this place, Alex Kronick. Alex, welcome to the Agents of Innovation podcast.
Thank you very much, Francisco. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, well, it's nice for me to be here on your property. So Caoba Farms is such a unique place. I first came here in April with my two friends, Kyle and Rosemary. Rosemary's from here in Guatemala, and Kyle is someone I had actually visited 2.5 years ago, my first trip to Guatemala. He doesn't live here now, but he was living here for 9 months at the time. He's from the U.S. But then in May, I brought my friend Bob Rubin, who lives in South Florida, back here. We were having an enjoyable lunch. We had just ordered, and all of a sudden, somebody on the staff came over to say hello to us, ask us how everything was, and seemed a little more interested. And I said, do you own this place or something? And you said yes. And anyway, it was you. It was Alex Kronick. So we had a really nice, I feel like 15-minute conversation with you at the time before our food even came. So it was really nice for Bob and I to get a chance to meet you. And one thing I've observed here many times since, and including on that day, was how you as the owner and operator are fully involved in every part of the business, and including in welcoming, random customers to your place. So thanks for welcoming us here back in May.
Yeah, thanks, Francisco. That's, part of my job and what I like to do. And, I go make sure everything's okay, and was just checking on you guys, and one thing led to the next.
Well, that's great. Well, Alex, so this is such a unique place, and so it was really neat that when we got to meet you, to be able to start asking you some questions about it, because if anybody has, I don't know, probably most people listening to this haven't been here, but it seems huge, right? What's great is it's a beautiful setting. You're sitting basically in a garden, eating at these different benches and trees everywhere and plants, and there's a nursery out back, there's a farm out back. You get to walk around either before or after your meal and see it. You also have a food store here, a lot of organic foods and things like that. But a fully operational restaurant, and so it's really kind of a neat place. And so when I was first brought here, I thought, this is such a unique place. I want to come back, bring different friends back, and that's what we did. But you started this place way back in May of 2004. Tell us, was this your family's land? And tell us a little bit more about what transpired from that point on, and how you had the idea to start this place.
Yeah, 2004, right before that, during Christmas, that 2003, I had been down here, and land was being used to grow roses, a little bit of roses, but mostly coffee, abandoned coffee. And they were growing roses for a restaurant in town, for decorating the tables. And since we had the door open for that restaurant, we decided to start pushing lettuces. I had an idea about expanding in the lettuce business, and more than lettuce, it was just exotic items that you could not find in Guatemala. There seems to be like a trend of restaurants opening a lot. It seems like a lot of people were going to study abroad for culinary arts, and they were learning with all these ingredients, Europe, States, Mexico, and they were coming back to Guatemala, whether to open restaurants or to work for someone else, but having to bump into not finding the ingredients they were used to working with or learnt with, and just the stuff that was locally being grown. And so I kind of became the person. I had an idea of growing like exotic items you couldn't find here, and I kind of became like the farmer of exotic items, not necessarily organic. In that moment, 2004, it wasn't really that popular, so it was more like growing exotic items. And so we started with romaine lettuce. There was really no romaine in Guatemala. No seed company selling romaine, no nothing like that. And that's really how it got going. I said, okay, if I'm going to start growing romaine lettuce, well, I got to first produce my own seed. And since we're going to produce my own seed, I might as well produce my own fertilizer and produce all pretty much everything. And so I was like, instead of organic, it started more kind of like a sustainable. How do I close the circle? How do I not rely on other sources? Because if I'm going to be growing exotic items that are not locally accessible, I need to really depend on myself and not on what's available.
Yeah, and then I remember, if I refresh my memory here a little bit, and for our audience, the idea with the romaine lettuce, where did that come from?
From a Caesar salad?
Yeah.
Is that the one?
I don't know. I feel like you told me that you were eating at some restaurant, maybe a friend owned or something, and you were like, "This isn't the right lettuce."
Yeah. So basically, I ordered a Caesar salad, and Caesar salad came with iceberg lettuce, and I was like, it shouldn't be romaine. In a Caesar salad, should be romaine, and it was a pretty expensive salad, and so I was like, you can't be serving a Caesar with iceberg, and so that's how I really realized there was no romaine in Guatemala. I was like, went looking for other restaurants to see if they had romaine, and went to the grocery stores, and no one had romaine. Then I looked into seed companies, and no seed company was selling romaine seeds, so I figured no one was growing romaine in Guatemala. And so that's when I said, okay, I'm going to grow romaine for this restaurant and for the other restaurants that need it. And but before anything, I had to start producing my own seed because there was no one to sell me seeds. So that's where the whole sustainable kind of concept came. Not necessarily organic, but sustainable. And with sustainable, kind of organic comes following along. But that wasn't really marketed towards later down the road.
Can you explain the difference? What is that? What is it? What are the differences between sustainable and organic? Does that?
It's completely different. Sustainable just means that you can be a non-organic product or non-organic business and still be sustainable. I mean, are you producing your own electricity? What I mean sustainable is how little do you depend on sources that are not from your business. How sustainable is a country? How sustainable is a school? How sustainable is a business? How sustainable is your household? Sustainability is a complete different word than organic. Organic, to me, is a word that's been very prostituted. Like, most people don't even know what organic means. But, to me, organic really only means organic fertilizer and organic sprays. And there you go. You got an organic product. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're doing truly organic agriculture, if you call it that way. I mean,
So organic is more like, is this the right way to say it? Sort of like just like 100% natural kind of thing? Would that be the right way to say it?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, it just depends what you're relying to. I mean, I usually I do tours around the farm, and what I try to get people to really understand is that there is conventional products, there's organic products that come from conventional agriculture, and then there's something that comes from a more sustainable, organic, all around biodiverse, method, which is more than just an organic product. It's you could call it almost a lifestyle. It's a method, and that's what we practice here. 99% of the organic products that have USDA certification, I would think, are more conventional farming with organic certification, meaning, just to give you an example, you could grow acres and acres and acres and acres of broccoli. There could have been a forest there, and you could have probably clear cut the whole forest, planted or broccoli, and spray it with organic pesticides and organic fertilizer, and you get an organic broccoli. Is that really an organic method of farming? Is that really organic agriculture? In my eyes, it isn't. That's just a conventional method of agriculture producing an organic product. What I talk about is more like, okay, is your business sustainable, or is it within your goals to be as sustainable as possible? How low impact to the environment are you as a business? I mean, you could be producing organic broccolis, but still be very high impact to the environment. Is your well taking all the water from the community? Are you outsourcing everything from You know, you're in Guatemala. It could be from the States, from Mexico, from Europe. It could be China. It could be India. It could be South America. I mean, if nothing's coming from how big's your footprint, your carbon footprint? Or are you trying to source everything locally, or even producing it, manufacturing yourself? So how biodiverse are you? I mean, if you're just growing broccoli, nature will never mimic broccoli in 100 acres, you know? So are you just monocropping? So where's the biodiversity in that? Are you community oriented as a business, or are you not community oriented? Is your business educational, or is it not educational? So all that, plus using organic fertilizers and organic sprays, whether or not using anything, just letting it go to nature's will, that to me is more of an organic method of agriculture. And however you want to call it. Some people call it permaculture, some people call it regenerative farming, some people may call it no-tilling, some people may call it edible landscapes, food foresting, silver pasturing. I mean, there's many methods of organic agriculture, as long as you kind of keep those kind of concepts true, which is, you know, are you trying to be as sustainable as possible? Are you trying to leave as least of a footprint possible to the environment? Are you trying to be as biodiverse as possible? Are you trying to be community oriented? Are you trying to be educational while using organic fertilizer, organic sprays? Or are you just into the money of organic product? Yeah. And, you know, manufacturing a broccoli with fertilizer and organic product, but, you know, your sustainability zero, everything's outsourced. Your biodiversity is nip. You know, you just got a hybrid broccoli that you're growing organically. Your carbon footprint's enormous because everything is outsourced. You're not, you know. Are you community oriented? No, you got your doors closed. You're not letting anybody in. You don't participate in any farmers market. You just sell to a big corporation.
Yeah. Well, so you're producing everything here that you're using for your restaurant. Let's get
not everything. No.
Tell me what's going on here with the restaurant.
I mean, the idea is to produce everything, but a lot of people come with a concept thinking that we produce everything, but it's not. We produce about anywhere between 60 and 70% for the restaurant.
That's still a lot.
Yeah, that's quite a bit. But a lot of people say, oh, 100% of everything is done here, and I just want to get that clear that it isn't, you know, because, I mean, there's olive oil, there's salt, there's flour, there's a lot of stuff we don't produce. But whatever we don't produce, we really try to find a local source, whether it's organic or not, at least keep it local. Yeah. And if it's possible, artisanal from like a small business. And eventually, if we can do it ourselves, well, that's the next step. But that's and then if we can't, obviously olive oil. You know, there's no olives in Guatemala, so we do outsource a few things. But we really, when it's that case, we do try to go organic.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so Alex, let's go back a little bit. So when you first came up to that table that day back in May, when Bob and I were visiting here, after talking to you for a few minutes, and I know a lot of people here, there's still a lot of, you know, native people here that know English, but your English seemed exceptionally good. And I said, where are you from? So tell us a little bit. I know you were born and raised here in Guatemala, but tell us a little bit more about your family's background and your background here.
Yeah, so born and raised in Guatemala. My mom's Guatemalan, my dad's from the States. He came down here maybe 42 years ago. Don't know the exact story, but I mean, he did meet my mom down here, never left, and voila, here I am. And then not too much later, when I was like around 13 years old, I ended up moving to the States.
Where at?
I moved to Colorado. And then
you were 13?
Yeah, about 13. I wanted to become like a sophomore in high school.
Sophomore in high school, yeah.
Yeah, so 13 and a half. And then I did all high school in Colorado, and then I was a ski bum for a while there, and then I wanted to keep I wanted to keep being a ski bum, so then I moved to Tahoe in California. Was there for a little over 4 years.
Was that sort of college age?
Yeah, college age, and then
did you go to college?
Yeah. So I got
in the States, or?
Yeah, I have a degree in science and entrepreneurship.
Oh wow.
You know, so I got also
science and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Are those? Is that like one major or two?
It's a major. It's basically
was
the
this at?
science of entrepreneurship. It's not entrepreneurship.
Okay.
It's like the science of entrepreneurship. Like
Okay.
it's you learn business, but you also learn a lot of creativity part about business and why entrepreneurship.
Where was that degree from?
That's a little college in Lake Tahoe called Sierra Nevada College.
Man, that'd be a great place to go to college, huh? Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, they were like when it came down to environmental science and that career of science and entrepreneurship, they were like top tier. I mean,
So let me just ask you something. Since you just mentioned Lake Tahoe, there's Lake Atitlan here in Guatemala. Some might call it the most beautiful lake in the world, but Lake Tahoe, some call that the most beautiful lake, and also I've heard Lake Como, which I've never been to. Never been to either of those, just Lake Atitlan. Can you compare Tahoe and Atitlan?
yeah. I mean, they got a lot of similar things, but they're both very deep lakes. I think that's what makes them very beautiful. Is that they're not large lakes, but they're very deep. I think both of them are within the top 4 or 5 deepest lakes in the world, and so that gives it a very special thing. But I guess the communities around it is what makes it the nice as well.
Yeah, here in Guatemala, Lake Atitlan.
I would say Lake Atitlan it would be nicer.
Yeah.
I'd by far if it wasn't as contaminated.
It's contaminated.
Yeah, it is, and so right now I would vote Lake Tahoe nicer, just because it's not contaminated.
Okay.
But I would say because of culture reasons and because of the weather and because of many other things, I would say Lake Atitlan could take its place. But since it's polluted, you don't feel it as comfortable about it.
Yeah. One of my brothers has been to both Lake Como and Lake Tahoe, and he said he'd give the edge to Tahoe. He's never been to Lake Atitlan. We'll have to get him down here soon. But he said, yeah, what's nice about Lake Tahoe is it also has some different seasons as well. So you can go there and ski, but you can enjoy it in the summer too.
Yeah.
So, but okay, back to Guatemala. So you were in Colorado for school. You said you were a ski bum. What happened after the slopes? After you were kind of done with the slopes for a while?
Yeah, I sold my car and started the farm.
Started the farm. What gave you the idea? Did your family own this land here?
Yeah. I had a lot of incentives why to come back. I had been living in the States for a while. It's easier to open up a business here in Guatemala. I mean, you don't need as much money. It's got everything in
what
life.
About the regulatory environment is compared to the States? Is it
way less regular?
Way less regulations, way less expensive, less capital needed to start a business in Guatemala.
Yeah, but everything in life has pros and cons. And
is that different for someone who's got Guatemalan citizenship compared to someone maybe outside Guatemala?
No, I mean Guatemala is a very friendly for foreigners. There's some countries that aren't friendly for foreigner investment. Guatemala is like a Costa Rica. We're very friendly. We want your money. It's very easy to come by land. It's very easy to come here. That's why there's a lot of expats. It's very easy to open up a business. There's a few things where you might need to, either live here for a certain amount of time or do some extra little paperwork, or get a Guatemalan business partner. But it's very friendly.
Yeah,
it's very friendly.
For you found it very. You were like, hey, it's going to be easier to open this business in Guatemala.
Well, there's a lot of ideas that still haven't happened here and that already exist in Europe, in the States, and other nations, and then you can bring them here and start small, and it's it's unique, it's new, it's Guatemala seems to be a very entrepreneurial kind of culture. It seems like Guatemala City, Antigua. So it's very friendly for opening up your business, and the regulatory and the expensiveness and everything is way malpractice things, insurances and all that. So it just makes it easier to open up a
John
business.
Morgan hasn't hit Guatemala yet, the trial lawyers, but at least not to the same degree. That has some pros and cons, I'm sure. But okay. So one thing I was going to ask you, if we want to back up a little bit, because I didn't realize you had done that so quickly with the farm. But what I always like, since this is a podcast about a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people listening that are interested in entrepreneurship, what was your first job in life? Could be as a kid or something you did, and what did you learn from that experience?
I would say stacking wood was my first job.
That was here in Guatemala?
It was here in Guatemala. It was I'd come back from I was like 13 years old. It was my first summer back from the States, and I didn't have much to do here, so I went and worked for a family guy.
You were in high school? Still?
Yeah, I was like a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
I was about I was like a sophomore in high school. I was transitioning from being a sophomore to a junior, and so I went to work at a wood mill. And they have these huge kilns where they dry wood, and so I was stacking wood for that forklifts could pick up the wood and take it into the kilns and dry them. So I was under the sun, and it was just a half day. I wasn't working full days. I still wanted a little bit of summertime to myself, but it was Monday through Saturday, so it was It was a 6-day week. Yeah, half a day from 8 to 12, 4 hours. And I had a buddy of mine who'd do the same, who was with me, and we're at 13 and a half, and he had a motorcycle, and so we'd go in our little moped to work and stack wood, and then end at noon, go eat lunch somewhere, and then go hang out and just enjoy summer.
Nice. So what'd you learn the most from that experience?
A little bit of discipline, like it had to be work hours 8 to 12. Was like the lowest position of the company that you could get, probably. Like, even though you don't make less money, it was like looked upon as like the lowest, least amount of education, least amount of skill that you needed to do it. But we were happy. We did it with pride. Everybody kind of was like, kind of accepted us doing that, and it was good. Also, maybe you learn process. There's a process to it. It's not just like, oh, let's do whatever. You got to follow rules, or else you don't do it right, and you can screw it up.
Yeah.
So you start learning basics.
Yeah, that's good. So back to Caoba Farms. What first stimulated your interest in agriculture and in restaurants, in terms of owning one?
Yeah, well, had a lot of friends growing pot in the States. And then.
You were in Colorado.
Yeah, and California, Northern California.
California.
Yeah, they were, I was kind of with some friends, so people growing pot around me. So that was kind of a green thumb right there from the start. But also my family has kind of always been involved in a little bit of gardening and agriculture and stuff. And therefore, I think it's there. My mom's always giving me seeds. She's always taking care of her garden. Even though I don't know, half the seeds she gives me don't even work, but she's always collecting stuff for me.
Yeah. Still to this day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And when did that start? When did she start doing that?
When she saw that I had a passion for that, she started collecting seeds for me. But prior to me even having a passion for it, she was always collecting seeds for her garden. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how did you get, you talked about your major in the States being the science of entrepreneurship. How did you get educated in a sense? Was it from the family or other, in terms of growing agriculture, raising it, and actually running a business with a restaurant? How did that education process?
See if I understand you correctly on that one, but basically there was a lot of you had to pitch a lot of business ideas to venture capitalists and angel investors within the area. That was kind of part of the whole thing, the school really got you motivated on working on a one-page business plan, getting ideas, being on creative thinking and startups and this, and so they were really pushing that type of stuff. So what would you start this, and then
this was out in Lake Tahoe.
Yeah,
and that's not too far from Silicon Valley.
No, right? It isn't. So, no, it isn't. I don't know, 5 hours, 4 hours, and basically, just have to find these 2-3 times a year. You'd have to have these meetings, and whichever venture capitalist or anybody wanted to come, show up, and they'd you'd pitch your ideas and stuff, and kind of like a Shark Tank, and a lot of people would get funded, and I had a lot of ideas, but I needed to get patents going on stuff, So there's a lot of stuff like that going on, and sure enough, there were some people who liked my idea about the farm thing, but they want to invest in Guatemala, a third world country out here in the middle of nowhere. But that's when I said, okay, I'm going to sell my car, come down here, and with that money I started. But they would. That the school was very focused on getting you thinking that way, and how to use if you didn't have the money, how would you use someone else's money, and make sure that you come out on top always, not losing, because everybody's got to win. Obviously the guy's going to give you the money's got to win, but how do you come up with these ideas and it's not only the idea, is how do you set up the business where you can then either buy them out, or you're always kind of the decision maker, and so they're not really there, and the interest or whatever you're feeding them is a byproduct of your earnings and the profit of your business.
Yeah. So we're here in beautiful Antigua. I mean the scene here is beautiful. We got some mountains behind us. We got a beautiful farm here. If you're in Antigua, Guatemala, it's a small city center in a sense compared to most places, but it's really beautiful and historic, a lot of ruins. I typically, Alex, when I come here, just walk, which most people don't do because it's about a 20 or 25-minute walk from the city center.
No, it's not.
Right?
It's 10-minute walk.
Minutes? Well, it depends where you are. Maybe if I'm staying on the north side of the city.
Yeah, north side maybe. But it's 10-minute walk from the city center.
Yeah, so 10-minute walk from the city center. And but a lot of people just take like a tuk-tuk, or
people are lazy.
Uber or something.
People are lazy.
Yeah, but I love walking down here because I just love walking through Antigua, and so it's really nice. But it's not. But what I'm trying to say is, if you're in Antigua, if you're visiting Antigua, it's not like you're gonna walk past it by chance, because you gotta know where you're kind of going. Since it's kind of right on the edge of the
we're off the beaten path. That's what I like to call it. We're not like hey, what's this? Oh, a farm. Let's go in. We're not like that. Everybody who comes usually found us online, word of mouth, something like that. It's.
So tell me a little bit about the evolution of the place in terms of what were you you talked about the romaine lettuce you started with, right, and other things. How did you grow the farm? How long was it a farm? How many of those acres did you cultivate? What exactly are you growing here today? And also, when did the restaurant itself start?
Yeah, so we're talking about 18 years ago. So I started growing produce, exotic produce, for local restaurants, since restaurants were starting to pop all over Antigua like flies. Yeah. And so we started out with romaine, then all of a sudden I had an Italian restaurant. Guy wanted arugula, so I started growing arugula. Then he said he wanted Italian basil for pesto. Then he wanted radicchio, and then they wanted kale, and then they wanted special parsleys, and so as restaurants started requesting items that they could not find locally, that's how I became growing these produce. And it was always me trying to find a local seed supplier who didn't exist, so I always had to, part of my business was producing my own seeds. To this date, I'd say 50% of my farming is dedicated to seed production. Wow. 95% of everything we plant is our own seed, comes from our own seed bank. 100% of our fertilizer is from the farm. 50% of anything we spray is made in the farm. 50% we buy, outsource it, but it's certified organic. But we're trying to close that circle as much as possible. So within our goals is to be 100% sustainable. How, we'd have to produce 100% of our energy, 100% of our seeds, 100%, and that's within our goals. We're not there yet, but
yeah, but that definitely shows a lot of sustainability happening right here when you're able to produce and just keep reproducing from what you're growing and the seeds.
Well, look at what's happening now with inflation in the transportation industry and all this. I mean, just a simple example, saran wrap. Chef's going nuts to me yesterday. He's like, I'm like, don't worry about it. There's nothing you can do. Don't kill yourself about it. He's like, saran wrap's gone 50% up in price. I'm like, let's get rid of the saran wrap. Let's use these other things. I mean, we really try not to use saran wrap, but I mean, there's certain things within a restaurant where we do use it. And so we're trying to find always an alternative. But he's going crazy about it because it's getting more expensive. So, and then he was talking also about olive oil. He's like, olive oil went up $10 a gallon. I'm like, And so he's going nuts, but I'm like, well, it's going up for everybody. It's not only us, you know. It's like it's going up for everybody. There's not much you can do about it. Don't kill yourself about it. But he's stressing himself really bad, and it's all because of transport. So if we were producing our own, let's say, macadamia oil or sunflower oil or some of our, and we wouldn't depend on this, you know. So we depend on things that are out of our control, and therefore that leads us to be less sustainable. And it's starting to happen now, and you can start to totally see it as gas prices go up, as there's less containers, less ships to transport stuff. This is bound to happen, and it's only going to happen more and more and more, and therefore, you know, how do you become more sustainable?
Yeah, and I know in the U.S. At the time we're recording this, there's lines of ships lined up because the ports haven't been open as much with COVID and things like that. And there's all sorts of other reasons, I'm sure. But yeah, it just shows as well that in the U.S. how dependent even the wealthiest country in the world is on all sorts of other places. Probably a lot coming from China and other places like that.
Yeah, they say there's no electrodomestics for 6 months or something. Like stuff like
so we'll have to see what happens here. But so you mentioned, so obviously there's a lot that is sourced right here in house at your restaurant, but you also grow and source for other restaurants and hotels.
Yeah, so going back to the question you were telling me, so basically I started growing produce, exotic items to local restaurants, and it wasn't necessarily as organic. 2004 wasn't really promoted as organic. It was more exotic. But since I needed to be sustainable, we kind of naturally were organic because we were following that method. And then as monkey see, monkey do in Guatemala and probably everywhere else in the world, as I got to a point where I had about 100 restaurants I was selling produce to. And big guys, Hyatt Hotel, Radisson, Intercontinental. I mean, there was big hotels.
So are those all in Guatemala City?
Yeah, in Guatemala City. I was selling to big groups of people, and who don't really care about what I was doing. It was just because I had an exotic item that they could not find anywhere else. And as people started seeing that I had a niche market, okay, well, bigger companies and people with a lot of money backing them up started getting involved in this. And before you know it, there was romaine in the market, and there was arugula, and there was maybe not everything I grow, but maybe top 4 or 5 products that I grew the most because that was the most required. People started growing it, and sure enough, not doing it organically, not doing it in a sustainable way, doing it in a more monocrop, and therefore they were going to the same clients and offering them at half price, and my clients would stick with me, but they were like, "Can you keep the same price?" And I know my numbers, and I said, "No, I can't. I really can't." And so I started losing my restaurants. They started dropping like flies, and I was like, okay, so I had to, adjust my business model. And so at 2008, so 4 years into it, I started kind of losing all these restaurants, dropping like flies. And so I was like, well, who cares about sustainability? Who cares more about organic? And so I started looking into families, like the private sector. And I was like, well, not necessarily the private sector, but because private sector could be a business. But I'm talking about more like the individual families of 4, 5, 6 people who go to school, who are willing to pay a little bit extra because they know where it's coming from. They know that it's organic. They know it's healthier. I mean, 2004... Whole Foods didn't exist, so organic wasn't really a big thing. Trader Joe's kind of existed, but not like the way it is now. And so 2008 started popping. It was starting to hit in the States as organic this, organic that. So I'm kind of at their level in terms of education when I'm looking at news and following on these kind of. So I started promoting myself as organic, more local, sustainable. 2008, so I started going more towards like a CSA, which is community supported agriculture type thing. But there was no really other people I was working with, so I was doing these like CSA baskets, delivering to homes. Started with my store around 2010, so people could come here and buy the produce. And then as I started opening up my store, I started looking for other farmers, other artisanal people, other local people who might be producing cheeses, bread, eggs, meat, stuff that I might not be producing. And therefore I start creating this little kind of niche grocery store, high-end, organic, local, artisanal grocery store. And I was pretty much one of the first to have that. And now there's a lot of little stores like that.
And that's the store you have here on site.
Yeah. And
yeah, by the way, I've bought some good little chocolates and things for little gifts for people, and people love it. They're like, where'd you get this stuff? It's good.
Yeah, we try to have very unique stuff. We try to work with very artisanal people who might only have 1 or 2 customers, and so we have very unique stuff you probably won't find anywhere else. Plus a lot of new stuff that we are constantly producing. And so that was the next step. And then as more people started opening up little stores and this type of stuff, well, then I said, okay, after working with 14 years with restaurants, I said, I got to open up my own restaurant. So that's been like the latest part of my business.
When did the restaurant open?
About 4 years ago.
Okay, just 4 years ago.
Yeah, but a whole year closed because of COVID.
That's right, yeah.
So we were closed all 2020.
The restaurant's in a beautiful setting, lots of trees. Like I said, it feels like you're in a garden. So in some places, you feel like you got your own little private spot because of the way you have it structured here. You also, some days I've been here, particularly on the weekends, and you have live music, and it's just really just a beautiful setting. Tell me, I haven't seen them physically here. I see some kids over here playing on a playground that you have set up, so it's a great place to bring some kids too. But I've seen that you've also have yoga classes go on here. Tell me about all the different activities that people can come to Caoba Farms for.
Yeah, so again, like these are the 6 principles that I believe in when it comes down to the method of agriculture that I chose, in which any type of business in the agricultural kind of organic agriculture, whether it's whatever method you choose, because there's many methods, should follow. And one is the sustainability thing I was talking to you about. The next one is your footprint in the environment, your carbon footprint. The third one would be how the biodiversity behind it. But then the fourth one starts leading towards community. And so I open up my doors to the community for people to come for the restaurant, for the tours, for all sorts of things. And one of them is yoga, dancing, capoeira, HIIT, circus performing. Plus we have all sorts of theater and shows and all sorts of stuff. So the idea is to open up, it's a community space. So we're opening it up. If someone wants to rent the space to do like a talk like what we're doing, or a workshop, well, this is available to them. And so
I think what you're going to need next here, Alex, is a little lodge or something, where people can come stay here. They can get a workout in. They can do yoga. They can eat. They can whatever. I know you've got a project 30 miles up the road, but tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So about 12 years ago, so we've been here for about 18 years, and so about 12 years ago, 11 years ago, one thing I noticed was I was starting to run out of land. And in Antigua, it's impossible to find more land. The prices are ridiculous. So we had to go a little farther out. And I knew I wanted to work on a different method of agriculture. And it was more, with agroforestry. And so protecting forests, as there's a big, people here cut forests like none other. And part of it's because people cook with firewood. Others because they're not educated and just slash and burn and then plant corn and the other ones a lot of cattle. And so I wanted to protect forests and also plant trees, and so I needed more land for that. And so we got into that concept. And so it's about half an hour away, 40 minutes depending what way you go or if you hit traffic or not.
And it's kind of further west from Antigua or like in the opposite direction of Guatemala City?
Yeah, it's more. I would call it's more northwest.
Northwest.
And I found a really nice piece of land, and I've been expanding that project. It's barely open to public. I mean, we have an Airbnb cabin now, but that's about it. But if you rent the Airbnb cabin, you get all 300 acres pretty much to yourselves.
Nice.
And
I'm definitely gonna have to do this one.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's booked this weekend. It's booked next weekend. It's the next 3-4 weekends. It's booked.
And I bet a lot of people don't even know about it, right? Do people find out about it from the Caoba Farms website? How do they find out?
You can, but I mean, most people
really
has been word of mouth.
Is
word of mouth. It's just we have one cabin.
Well, the Agents of Innovation podcast, the word of mouth is getting out now. You're gonna be booked like crazy.
Well, hopefully. I mean, you know what you do when you're booked like crazy? You just raise the price.
That's right. It's called Yeah, it's called the free market. So what do you have up there? I mean, on the you have 300 acres?
Yeah.
Wow.
So endless hikes.
3 acres here.
Yeah.
Wow.
So endless hikes in nature. We have a big natural swimming pool. So it's about 180 feet long by...
Is it like a lake? What's that?
Yeah, it's like an artificial lake that I built.
Artificial.
Yeah, so we have spring
not
water.
natural.
No, well, the thing is we have lots of natural springs, and I dammed a few of them, and they turned this thing into a natural pond, you can call it. It looks you wouldn't be able to tell that someone built it. It looks really natural. Yeah. And then it overflows and it keeps going its way, and it's just a lot of nature has come since I've done it. New birds, all sorts of new insects. Saw some like ferrets kind of type things swimming the other day. All these crabs showing up. I haven't introduced any animal there. It's just all has come naturally, and
nature will come.
Yeah, so yeah, there you go. And as long as you don't introduce weird things into it, I mean, you can, but what I like to do is I like to wait. I told myself I'd wait 2-3 years, see what comes by itself, and then if something doesn't come within the next 2-3 years, then I can introduce something. But
is there any do you have any like cattle or horses or anything?
I have a few cattle there, not much, but the little bit of cattle I got is to producing my own beef for my hamburgers and a few special cuts for the restaurant. I got lamb, and that's what the lamb we use for the restaurant. I got chickens.
Oh, I've had the lamb burger. It is fantastic. So now I can actually see what I'm eating out there.
Yeah, there you go. And then, so we got chicken for eggs mostly, not for the chicken. I have a friend who produces organic chickens, but we do more for eggs. And I have ducks for doing duck meat. And we grow a lot of avocados. We do peaches, cherimoyas, plums, apples. We do all sorts of other fruits. A lot of raspberries, like 4 or 5 different types of berries. We do sweet potato. We do a lot of stuff out there with watercress. And therefore there's some farming, but the farming is only maybe 10 acres, 15 acres out of the 300. The rest is all pretty much forest.
And like, how do you split your time? How do you manage your time between the place here in Antigua, Caoba Farms, and I don't know if you have a name for the place out there.
Yeah, it's called Caoba Farms Paramos, but the actual name, that's how you'd probably find it on Instagram and stuff. But the actual name of the farm is Los Tucanes, Finca Los Tucanes. And the reason is because there's these wild mountain toucans that live out there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is it, when you say finca, so it's like a
ranch?
Farm, yeah.
It's a ranch. It's not necessarily a farm, it's like a ranch. Half my time there, half my time here. So basically, the restaurant only opens Thursday to Sunday. We finally started opening Wednesday to Sunday, but I'm here from Thursday first thing in the morning to Monday noon, and then from Monday noon I head out that way. I stay there till Thursday first thing in the morning.
And the restaurant typically is open till what, about 4 p.m.?
4 p.m.
Yeah, so it's not like a dinner spot. It's more of a breakfast and lunch.
Breakfast and lunch place. Yeah.
But it's great place. So you have two fully
farm to table. That's our big concept. Farm to table.
Literally farm to table. I mean, there's a lot of farm to table concepts that aren't really farm to table. And you can actually walk around the farm and as you're waiting for your table, which is actually a cool thing because sometimes I've come here and maybe there's a not long wait, 10, 15 minutes at the most, and most times, and I can just go take a look at the farm. There's a nursery here, right?
Yeah, there's a there's a butterfly sanctuary.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, there's a butterfly sanctuary in the back where we house about 10 different types of butterflies.
We'll have to check that out.
Yeah. So I think it's the biggest in the area. I think it's the second biggest in all Guatemala.
Wow. I've been to, I don't know if this is comparable because I have no knowledge on this subject, but in Lake Atitlan, there's the Atitlan Natural Reserve, and there's like a butterfly.
Yeah, so that's supposed to be the biggest,
yeah.
And we're the ones that follow. But the people, supposedly, the story goes that the people who have the one in the lake learned from the father of the guy who has my butterfly sanctuary here.
Oh, very cool, very cool. So you're also married. You met your wife. She's from Sweden, I understand. You met her here in Antigua?
I did.
Yeah,
I'm a lucky man.
And how many? And you have one daughter?
One daughter, and I'm about to have a second one in January.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah.
Well, this podcast we're filming it a little early, but it's probably going to air in January.
Yeah.
So hopefully by that time, do you have a date?
They say the 19th.
Okay. Well, I was born on January 13th, so I'm going to hope for. This is your son?
My daughter.
Oh, this is going to be a daughter. So
yeah,
2 daughters.
2 daughters.
Okay, great.
I guess that's what supposedly the ultrasound said, but it was too early to really give me 100%.
Yeah. So Alex, you're not only a a farmer and a restaurant. I mean, you're an entrepreneur, which encompasses all these different aspects. Tell me a little bit about Guatemala and what kind of advice can you offer to people? I mean, you did offer a little bit before earlier in the podcast, but I just wanted to elaborate on that, mentioning that you mentioned that it was easy. It seemed easier for you to open a business here, less expensive.
Yeah, it's got its pros and cons.
Yeah.
I mean,
but what advice would you recommend to would-be entrepreneurs, especially in Guatemala?
Entrepreneurs in Guatemala, my advice is, as hard as it is, claim everything, pay your taxes, because your business will be way more organized. Second of all is definitely do what you love to do. If not, it's going to kill you eventually. You got to do what you like to do, and then and if you're not liking it, start thinking how to get out of it and switch to something else. Little baby steps, and then I think the other one would be to not wait for something to be perfect to do it. Like some people likes to open up a restaurant and they'll make the restaurant look like it's been there for 10 years before they even open the doors. I'm like, I believe in an organic growth and not just make it look perfect, because it's never going to be perfect. You're going to make something that's perfect, and then guess what? You're going to open the doors. You're still going to be fixing it, and you just lost a lot of business, or it's going to take a lot more money to switch because you went all the way before you learned. So it's a lot of a feeling and observation, and things will come naturally. And you'll never be stable because there's always things to be fixed.
So really kind of like don't make the perfect the enemy of the good in a sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like don't wait till something's perfect, like your idea is perfect to open it up. Just get going. You don't stop with nothing, right? But start with the basics and then build off of that. Don't wait to get someone to give you all the money that you need to get the perfect idea that you are searching for, because as you're in it and you're involved in it, it will change. So,
and what do you have any books you like that you might recommend? Any favorite books? Especially anything maybe for an entrepreneur?
Profit First. Have you ever heard of that book?
I heard about it from you.
Oh yeah, so I like that book. That's like a good book about business. Basically, we get taught how you do sales minus expenses, and that's your income pretty much, your profit. But it's not that way. How you can always have more expenses. You can always have even more expenses than your sales. So it's the math behind this. The whole book really talks about how it's sales minus profit equals expenses. So first, basically, I'm a farmer, and I'm like, well, how much money do I need to live off of? So I'm going to say, okay, well, my family needs, so much for school and this and my food wise, and without, I got to do some sacrifices because I can't give myself something exaggerated. I'd love to have a $10,000 salary, but being legit to yourself, well, how much is what you need to be comfortable and get through? Okay, so you need $2,000, you need $3,000 a month. Okay, so you write that down, and you say, okay, well, I got to pay myself first $3,000, and then that if your sales are $10,000, then you're going to give yourself $3,000. That's what you want your business to be profitable. Then you got $7,000 as expenses, and organize your business around that, and get rid of whatever is going to be above that thing. Because if not, you can always use your $3,000. Oh, I'll spend my $3,000 on this, and I'll spend my $3,000 on this, and you're always going to there's always places to spend your money, and therefore, if you're not happy, then the business is not happy. So
this is a way to balance kind of personal budget and business budget? Would that be the way to?
Yeah, because most entrepreneur people are running their business when they're getting started. At least they're running their business, and then your income is whatever's left after the expenses. And you'll always tell yourself as like, there'll never be any money for you, because you can always buy the new pump and the new refrigerator, and you can always buy the new stove, or you can always have a new phone and a new there's always somewhere where you can spend the money and for your business. Oh, I'd like to have the new outdoor garden so I can sell more tables, or if I'd like to have the delivery truck, because now I can expand my business. Yeah, you can, but it's are you using your own personal money for that? So it's a very fine line between giving yourself first the profit you need, and then having the expenses. Don't make your profit your expenses.
So speaking of your family, does your wife have any role with helping you run these farms and restaurant?
Yeah, she's the whole social media. She loves that stuff, so she takes the pictures. She does Instagram, Facebook, which today it's like a full-time job. It's crazy. It's being on top of that as big as we are, and with everything that's happening here, it's a full-time job. And she runs pretty much the store. So she makes sure, see who gets to sell in the store and who's out and all kind of the things about the store. I'm more in charge of the restaurant and all the actual agriculture part of the business. And she's actually in charge of the yoga and all those, all the
kind of social community activities.
Yeah, the farmers market, the yoga, the dancing and all that.
That's I noticed. I think it's mostly on the weekends where you have.
And I don't really I call it a farmers market. It's not necessarily a farmers market. It's more like an artisanal market.
Yeah.
It's like local artisans it's local artisans. Some are farmers. Some are both farmer and something else. Some make bread. Some make crafts. Yeah, some make rum. Some make cheeses. It's just.
So when you're walking into Caoba Farms, kind of in that entrance area, particularly on the weekends, I think.
Saturdays and Sundays, every Saturday and Sunday.
There's always a lot of things. It's a great place if you're in Antigua and you're looking for gifts and you're just, other little things. It's a great, and to support the local community. I met somebody here actually when Bob and I were here walking out. All the crafts or I forget what she was selling. Maybe it was actually some little food items. But they were all going to like a charitable organization, so it was kind of like a.
So we always try to have a charity organization on the weekend where we help the charity organization. Kind of I'm not going to say all the funds go there, but let's say we usually charge people to participate in this farmers market for a table and for a space. We don't charge these people. We tend to give a free spot to a charity organization every weekend so that they can come offer their products and be around we market them, and they're around our people that follow us, and so we give them exposure for free and try to help them out, get a little push in it, and yeah.
Yeah. So Alex, last question or two here. How many staff about do you have? What do they do, and how do you train them to do it?
I got about, give or take, anywhere between 60 and 70 people. Depends, how hard the COVID is.
Yeah.
But we have between the farms and between all the activities that we do, the restaurant, the store, the delivery, the CSA, everything, and all the farming going around. We got about 60 full-time employees, and then about 10 to 15, give or take, part-timers. Plus volunteers and all sorts of stuff. We do like a pyramid schedule. I'm the boss, and then me and my wife's the boss, and then I'm the second boss.
Smart answer.
And and then we get like the people who I deal with, which we have like a meeting every week, and they're like the people in charge of certain departments. We have the head accountant, we have like the guy in charge of the store, we got like the guy in charge of the fields of the farming, we got like the guy in charge of the restaurant, we got like the charge and count of all the deliveries, and basically we all sit in a meeting, and we go through everybody's kind of area, and everybody always has like their wish list, because everybody always wants stuff to make their business work better, but we can't just give everybody what they want. So usually there's a wish list, and they got like their top 5 things they want, and we start saving money in their areas for aiming for those things. And sometimes their wish list is not my wish list, so we alternate and we come together to choose what the wish list is. But basically, they give me updates. Plus, there's reports, and there's processes, and we have job descriptions and all sorts of stuff. Because if there's rotation, a new person comes in, and same within restaurant. There's recipes, and so if the bartender leaves, the new one comes. He just has to be able to follow the recipe. So.
That's good. And one thing I've noticed here, you're the owner, but I've seen you. In fact, the last time I was here, I was trying to talk to you, and you were busy running around the restaurant. You were making sure tables were getting food. I saw you one point working with one of your servers, maybe, or maybe it was with one of the cooks, making sure something had the right ingredients. Maybe it was a drink or something. And so you're definitely like, and I saw you showing and instructing, one of your employees, how to. Oh, this presentation needs to be a little bit better on this plate, whatever it was. So it seems like you're very hands-on, but also like you're very, you're involved. I mean, you're not just like telling people what to do. You're like working hard here every day that you're here. I've noticed that.
Yeah, thanks, Francisco. Yeah, first it's because I love it. I like doing it, and through my years of experience, at least, it's telling people doesn't always get things done the right way. I think being, putting yourself lower to their position and walking them through it, and really, I'll go and wash dishes. I'm not afraid of washing dishes. I'll pick up tables. I'm usually the busboy. I prefer being the busboy than the waiter, because then I see what they didn't eat. And then if they didn't eat it, I'd like to make sure that they were happy, or were they not happy? Was there something we could have done better? Were they just full? What happened? And so I learn a lot more through being a busboy than being a waiter. Sometimes I'm a waiter as well, but I'm just saying, I in my experience, I learned more being a busboy than being the waiter. And by being I teach my waiters how to clean plates before the dishwasher, and how to place them and not throw them, because in the restaurant, you throw a lot of plates, and before you know it, you're losing plates. They're breaking, they're chipping, they're all sorts of stuff. So if you do it right, there's no reason for them not to be able to do it right.
Well, and I noticed that the first day we met you, because like I said, you came up. I mean, we had actually already seen the waiter. He had taken our order, and actually you changed my order as soon as I asked you something. Oh, Francisco, you might like the this instead. Oh, put that in instead. Yeah, I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. Maybe actually it was some kind of lamb. It wasn't the lamb burger, but it was some kind of lamb.
We changed you to lamb chops.
Lamb chops, yes, that was fantastic. Because your burger here, and actually that's the buffalo burger.
Uh-huh.
The buffalo burger is fantastic. I'm getting hungry now talking about all this, but it's fantastic. And I think I'd had that like twice or something before. And then I came here, was going to order it again. Bob ordered it because of my suggestion. And then you said, you might want to try these lamb chops. So that was a great suggestion. But anyway, what was interesting, we had already seen the waiter, and you walked up and started talking to us, which I don't know, maybe I could have thought you were the host or the busboy or whatever it was. But then you asked a couple questions. I started thinking, this guy's I think this guy might be the owner, so because you definitely, first of all, it was great customer service to welcome us, because you don't always go to a restaurant and meet the owner, especially this place was busy that day. It was a very busy place. So that was great. But then also it sounds like, you get a lot of feedback, and it sounds like what you're doing, picking up plates and things like that, being the busboy, you get to learn about the customer experience, and that's only going to improve your business.
And we sell experiences. I mean, we don't sell food. We really
sell some good foods.
Yeah, we do. But we do, and then part of it is because it's good chef and it's good recipes and stuff. But I think a lot of it has to do with the ingredients. But also, what we like to sell is an experience. You're here, you're sitting in a farm. You're eating food. You're getting a lot of it from the farm. But there's the vendors there. You can kind of, after that, you like a sauce, you like this, the cheese. We have it at the store. There's all these activities happen here which you can participate in. It's a very family-oriented place, from everything from kids who need diapers to grandparents, and it's a very, you can be a grandparent and a son drinking
grandparents
beer.
That need diapers, that were you
and then basically you're here drinking beer while your kids are playing in the playground, and it, we're very social place.
And a beautiful surrounding, and again, you can walk the farm and check it all out, and anyway,
see animals and everything.
It's a great experience here at Caoba Farms. It's been one of my favorite places to eat in Guatemala, period. Especially when I'm in Antigua, I always I always make time to be here, and I'm glad you were able to make time for the Agents of Innovation podcast. So I really appreciate you being with us and sharing your experience here in Antigua at Caoba Farms.
Thanks, Francisco. Yeah. When you asked me for this, I was like, okay, well, we'll see when and this and that. Because a lot of people talk, but they don't walk. A lot of people want to do stuff, but they're just either traveling too fast through Antigua or, But I'm glad we were able to really get some time down and do it. Because we mentioned this maybe 3 months ago, 2 months ago. I don't know.
Longer than that, actually. The day that Bob and I were here, what was funny is Bob's been on my podcast. I've known Bob a long time, and Bob Rubin, and I started asking you questions, and we just kept having this conversation for 10 or 15 minutes, and Bob kind of paused and said to you...
He knew my dad, remember?
Yeah, well, first of all, he said to you, before we even knew that he knew your dad, he said, Alex, you might want to step away. Francisco has a podcast. He's just going to keep asking you questions. And I said, actually, I'd love to have you on my podcast. So the first time I met you. And then within minutes, Bob started asking a little bit about what does your family do? And then when your dad does something very interesting.
Yeah, he manufactures doors and windows.
Yeah, which is very specific. And some little light bulb went off in Bob's head. And he said, your dad's name is Paul. Is that right, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he asked you what your last name was. And you both, me and you, I think, both looked like, where are you going with this, Bob? And Bob's like, yeah, your dad was a client of mine for like 20 years. Because your dad spent some time in Florida.
No, I think
right?
he was a client of my dad's.
Oh,
well, whatever, but
whatever
he was the client, and my dad was selling him doors and windows. I think, is he in the business, in the construction business or something?
No, he's actually a financial manager.
Okay.
So maybe it was both. Maybe they were clients of each other. I have no idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, whatever it was.
They knew each other, and it was very strange.
And what a small world it can be in Guatemala, and that was super small. And then, by the way, like, I've met plenty of people in Antigua and other places in Guatemala that know you. Like when I mentioned Caoba Farms, oh yeah, I know Alex, right? I later that day we met Lynn and Uwe, who run Antigua Cigars. I know you're not a cigar smoker like me and Bob are, but they knew you, and I guess they knew your family, and so that was just kind of
you guys
funny.
asked me where to go. I think you guys asked me what cigar company you guys should like. Where should we go buy cigars? And I think I told you guys to go to that cigar shop.
Yeah, well, actually, we were already going to go there, but I think I did ask you that. Actually, we were having such a great conversation, I was thinking maybe we could have this over cigars. So I said, do you smoke cigars? He said, no, but I got some friends that do, and you should go to Antigua Cigars. And I said, actually, we're planning to go there.
Yeah, something like that.
That's exactly what happened. So that was funny. But anyway,
and how long
Alex,
ago was that?
That was in May. So from the time we're talking, that was about 5 months, maybe?
Yeah. So 5 months ago, yeah. So,
and
then 5 months later, we're doing the podcast.
Yeah, here we are. So, but thank you so much for being on the Agents of Innovation podcast, and I hope more people come visit Caoba Farms. It's a really beautiful place.
Thanks, Francisco. Thanks for having me, and thanks.
All right.